So since BlizzCon and since specifically Warbands have been revealed, there's been one thing on my mind about how this system could be used in a future system that's been heavily requested for World of Warcraft for probably a decade plus, and that's housing. Now, just to start off, I think housing will be added into World of Warcraft at some point, whether that be with Midnight, whether that be with The Last Titan, or whether that be with an expansion after the World Soul Saga. At some point, the developers are going to add it into the game, because this is also a system that the developers working on the game really want to add into the game. In fact, on the run up to Dragonflight, this question was asked: is there going to be player housing at some point in WoW? And Ian Hazzikostas and multiple other developers did mention that this is something that the teams want to add into the game, but it's a very big ask and would require a massive amount of development, because not only would it just take a lot of development to build out a system like this, add in all of the rewards into the game because you want it to be customizable, so you'd have to add a ton of new rewards, probably a new system for crafting, stuff like that. So it would be a massive amount of development. Even if you're just looking at it as a new system, there most likely has to be a bunch of code rewriting to get a system like this to work correctly. But then we fast forward to BlizzCon and getting these Warband reveals, it seems like we're a lot closer to housing because of what they've had to do to get Warbands working. Because one of the big things that was mentioned when talking about Warbands at the deep dive at BlizzCon was that they had to rewrite a lot of fundamental code for WoW to get Warbands to actually work. Because previous to this, and throughout the entire history of World of Warcraft, there's been a lot of assumptions that this 20-year game has been developed and coded based upon, and that was not that everything would be account-wide. That was that everything would be directly tied to your character. So they had to do a lot of work to rewrite all of this foundation to make Warbands, as we're getting in the War Within, actually work. But that also means that they've done a ton of work at rewriting this foundation that now means other systems that are going to tie into Warbands will be much easier to develop. They don't have to rewrite a ton of foundational code. Now they just get to make this new system as new content. And something like housing could tie directly into Warbands. Because I think the best way to go about this player housing would be to have one plot of land, it would obviously be instance, that your entire account would basically take part in. And even adding to that the new login screen with Warbands, where you get to choose certain characters to be huddled around a fire on that login screen, that could also be something that ties into player housing as well. Imagine you have player housing and then you have like a certain section or different pieces you place in your player housing where then you could take one of your characters and like apply your character to that. Maybe you can make some chairs in your player housing and then you can apply one of your actual characters and then they would just sit in that chair and be at your house. That could be something that could be tied into player housing directly from Warbands, and it would make sense as an extension of Warbands. And then you just have all the different customization, and then you just have all the different things players would want with player housing. You would want to be able to fully customize it. You would want to be able to put up like trophies of boss kills you have, to put up your achievements at that house. And with basically everything else in the game turning into account wide, it would make sense that all of these systems would just mesh well together. Because imagine they add all these new rewards for player housing. Imagine they add new like trophies for getting ahead of the curve on a raid or something like that. And you get, say, a trophy to go place up in your house. Well, now that that's all account wide, now it makes a housing system that would be account wide much easier to develop content for, and to develop the customization for. And then you have something like Transmog that's in the collection UI already. So you have Transmog, then when we go into Warbands, you'll be able to earn all Transmog on one singular character. So if you're on a plateware and you get a cloth drop, you still earn that Transmog for the entirety of your account. So you can just go use it on one of your other characters. And that could work perfectly for customization unlocks for player housing. So let's say they add in that player housing, then they add new cosmetic customization that you can get from anywhere in the entirety of the game. So you go do an old raid and the end boss can drop a different piece of customization. It could work in the exact same way as Transmog and be in the collections tab, and it would be much easier to develop these because it would be tied in to this account-wide system that is Warbands. And there's actually a chance that something like this is added with Midnight, because after BlizzCon and after we started getting all these developer interviews, a bunch of developers actually teased that there's going to be be something ridiculous with Midnight. And I think it's pretty telling that after the War Within reveals, where we got multiple new systems that have been universally well received, after those reveals, we have developers teasing that there's going to be something ridiculous in the next expansion, which would be directly comparing it to the stuff we just got revealed for the War Within. So it would even be something that is considered even more ridiculous than the stuff we just got revealed. And I think there's somewhat of a chance that that could be some type of housing system. And I think a housing system is probably the most wanted system in WoW. So I think if possible, that's something that the developers at Blizzard would want added in one of these 3 upcoming expansions. But that's all I want to go over. So thanks for watching.